All right, welcome everyone. This is the September 14th, 2023 meeting of Fitchburg's Transportation and Transit Commission. I am Steve Arnold, and the secretary will note that we have a quorum with Bill Horns, Bill Jetzer, Micah, me, and we have Elizabeth Ward on audio. There are no members of the public, so we'll go on to approval of the agenda. Does anybody want to make a motion to start the discussion about that?
I move approval.
Second.
All right, are there any additions or changes that anybody wants to make that would comport with the open meetings law? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the proposed agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
Aye.
thank you. Are any opposed? It's unanimous. On to approval of the minutes. We'll start with a motion.
I move approval of the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any corrections or changes or other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes of July 13th as submitted, say aye.
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 Those are approved unanimously. I get back to the right agenda here. Nothing was referred to us by the council. And Bill, you are in your role as our representative at council meetings, you are urged to send us things or request that things be sent to us should they slip through our radar and other not on the consent agenda. Okay. So that brings us to discussion items. The first one is our the status of TTC recommendations vis-a-vis the Transit Study and Resolution R205-22. We have in the packet the staff report for that and the referral sheet and the resolution. Unfortunately, if you tried to follow them, none of the links are good in the staff report, and it's link heavy. But Bill, you submitted this a couple of months ago. What would you like to discuss about this?
Well, first, just a comment that what you're calling a staff report, which is Bill Balke's December 2nd memo. There's a little difference between what he says, where he says, if I can find it, I think he characterizes this study in a little different way. He's talking about bear with me a moment.
Is what you're looking for in the referral sheet?
No, it's on his memo.
Okay.
It just caught my eye, and I don't know if it's important. And I thought I would have it right here. He talks about an intra-city transit study.
Mm-hmm.
And he says there'd be a $15,000 budget proposal. And that's different from what this group had recommended to council. Our request for a study was not about extending metro services into Fitchburg. That was perhaps could be an element of it, but what we were asking for is better described in the memo November 22nd refer to November 22nd, where it talks about we want the study to look at three things: transit shuttle to the civic campus, independent of what Madison Metro does. The possibility of establishing park and ride, and I guess I should say a bus route extension into the civic area. So those are the three elements that we asked should be the focus of the study. And Ross, I see you're nodding, so I think you got that already.
Yes, so I think the Bill Balke memo was kind of included as the start of this, and then it kind of evolved as with TTC's input, and then I can also share what I've got for an
Right, because I think
RFP.
part of this was a staff report on what's the status of these recommendations, and staff would be the ones who would be taking these forward through the RFP and so on stage.
And Bill, if you skip ahead to page 10 in the packet, resolution R20522 does explicitly list exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to not have a confusion about that, because I was, at some point earlier before we raised this issue again, I think there was some possible misunderstanding of what we were asking for. And I don't know if we were unclear or what, but.
So I put together a draft RFP for this intracity transit feasibility study with those three
Excellent.
items that you listed that were in that referral sheet.
But that's not in our packet, right? I didn't miss that.
Correct,
Okay.
yes. I was out last week, so I did not get this in by the
All right.
agenda deadline. But this basically goes through just a very brief summary of the study, which is just a kind of two-sentence explanation that this is a study that will cover different modes of intracity public transit. And then it goes into the three main goals of the study, or three main things to be studied, which is the transit shuttle to the civic campus, bus route extensions to the civic campus, and additional park and rides.
Okay.
So
How much more is there to the RFP?
basically, there's just the project scope, kind of the deliverables that we would actually want from the consultant, which mainly just consists of a report, and I go over the things that should be in the report, benefits and disadvantages of each of those options, proposed route map, service times and locations for each option, cost of implementing each one, like high and low bus service, high and low transit shuttle service, one park and ride versus 2 or 3 park and rides, and then ridership estimates and an actual implementation plan.
What were you envisioning our role in crafting or approving or commenting on this RFP?
Basically, I can include this in the minutes, and then any comments I think we could have at the next meeting, if that works.
Is that adequate for your timeline for getting this out to consultants?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So in that case, I would say we won't put it in the minutes, we'll put it in the packet for next time.
Sure, okay.
Does that sound like a good path forward to everyone?
But the minutes will reflect what Russ just said.
That you displayed it. We've not had a chance to read it.
Do you want to, so if this is going to go in next month's agenda packet, do you want to email that to us and solicit comments before it, or do you want to just keep it to yourself until you unveil it next month?
I like right away, it's a great idea.
Yep.
So we'll put it in the packet so the public has it, but that way we are not doing everything between Friday and the following Thursday. Sounds like a great suggestion.
Just a question, does the council, and when something like this goes through, do they have to act on this RFP?
Yeah, so they don't have to act on the RFP, they would have to act on
The
the
award.
proposal that we get back
Okay.
and awarding the actual study.
Okay, so you're
So-
fully empowered to do the RFP, subject to our comments.
I'm not spending any money yet.
I would expect that we being the appropriate subject matter committee and the finance committee would be the ones that would probably give feedback to Ross before the mayor sends this out to the world, publishes it as an RFP.
Yeah, I would think so, I'll have to double check on that.
I don't think it's necessarily relevant to the Board of Public Works or the Bicycle Committee or
Right.
such.
But it's the sending out of the RFP is an executive act by the mayor.
Did we look at the DOT program to see if this fit into that? There was a DOT program that would have covered.
The Beltline PEL study,
No, there was a
So
urban transportation grant program that was related to intercity transit that we had talked about a couple meetings back.
So that we had, back when I was on TTC, or maybe it was on contracted oversight, but I believe it was TTC. So there are these tiers of cities in Wisconsin and they get different kinds of aids. And we do not get transit aid directly because we participate in Madison Metro. And it would be very problematical if we were to try to get our own aid and get aid through Madison Metro. So that was, at the time, that's why that was not approved. Sun Prairie, by contrast,
So,
gets its own aid from the state.
so this is not aid for the actual transit program, this is aid for the study itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can find it while we're sitting here.
While you're finding that, had a question on that, because Resolution R20522 it's got Mayor Richardson's signature on it, so it looks like it was passed that there's $25,000 allocated for this, but it was allocated for the 2022 budget.
rolled
So,
it over.
okay, so it is still available, and that money has not been reallocated for anything or evaporated.
Correct.
Okay.
It's committed to this.
So it's the Transportation Alternatives Program.
Oh,
TAP grant.
Yeah, we're very familiar with that for other purposes.
Okay.
But it can be for planning grants.
So at this point, to apply for a TAP grant in addition to this $25,000 would push our timeline out. I'm not sure how far.
TAP grants are for a biennium,
Mhm.
and the current biennium is what we're in, so it would be some biennium that is 1 to 2 years from now for 2 years.
Okay.
So I know that we have 2 TAP grants right now, one for B-Cycle, there may be more, but I know of 2, and one for the county MM underpass. And that is going to be designed in 2023 and built in 2024. And so, 5?
2020, designed in 2025 and built in 2026.
Okay.
That was part of the grant, them awarding us the grant, was they wanted a further out timeline.
Okay,
And that maybe makes sense anyways, because when that new neighborhood goes in, there may be,
that's a key part of it,
yeah.
because that neighborhood is building the path that would connect.
Right.
So anyway, we would be looking at probably 25, 26, or even later for a new TAP grant.
I mean, we can cover it with what we have now.
Yeah, we got it now. Bill, are there other questions you had that?
Oh, about this?
Yeah, about.
No, I was just eager to get the ball rolling with Russ. He's doing
Okay.
it.
All right, so it'll be rolling next month, or even sooner. We'll get it on our email and can start reviewing it for our October discussion. Any questions, Elizabeth?
Nope.
Very good. Beltline PEL study. So I submitted input to Ross. Did anyone else, and what was the outcome from that?
Do you want me to say? who
Yes,
else?
please.
Elizabeth submitted some comments, and Bill Jetzer submitted comments as well.
And were they accepted?
So there was this is kind of stepping on my
Staff report?
staff report, but that's okay.
Yeah, move it up.
There was
the agenda.
Yeah, there was an indirect and cumulative impacts workshop that was a space to provide comments on the impacts that all of these alternatives would have on the city and its people, or the metropolitan area and its people. So I provided kind of a summation of all of your comments in that workshop. They solicited those comments in a GIS form, and that GIS form is no longer open. So I couldn't go get them back, but this is what I submitted, just more geographically based on each of the improvements. So new park and rides should be located on low-value land away from major economic centers, consider turf parking lots. That was basically a copy and paste of one of Bill's comments. And then City of Fitchburg supports all mass transit, bicycle, and pedestrian improvements. And the City of Fitchburg would support all other improvements over expanding capacity of the Beltline itself. Those two were kind of bringing together a lot of different comments.
A lot of
some
different notes.
Yeah. And then City of Fitchburg supports proposed road crossings between Gammon and Whitney Way and at Perry Street, and road crossings of US 14 from Stewart Street to Fitchburg's Southdale neighborhood, and reconnecting East and West Badger roads. Those were provided on each of those individual alternatives, respectively. City of Fitchburg suggests protected bike crossings at the Beltline at Whitney Way, Park Street, and other current bicycle and pedestrian hostile road crossings. That was provided at each of those individual crossings. And then this last one is one that staff came up with during one of our meetings. The realignment of Oregon Road to support the street connection across Highway 14 the way they had it shown, basically it went right through the Artisan Village apartments and the Doxa Church.
That's back when there was none.
Yes, exactly. That was the exact reasoning they gave, and they are looking to realign that before it actually is constructed. So
Or
that one was answered
or
immediately.
Or even planned, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm very happy with that. Thank you very much. Other comments?
There's some things here I'm not completely familiar with. I don't know about what the Artisan Village apartments are, and I don't have a map in my head to visualize. Do you have a map you can put up to point to these things?
Yeah, both Doxa Church and Artisan Village are like 2017 or later, I think.
Yes.
Which is a surprisingly long time ago in 2023.
Yeah, I was mayor. Well, that seems like a really long time ago. Okay, you're not displaying that screen. Okay,
All right, there we go.
so,
Lower right, you can see Doxa.
Yeah.
There you go. And Artisan Village is just south of it.
Yes, so basically the realignment of Ski Lane and Oregon Road would push this intersection back into here in order to get a bridge
Get the altitude.
Highway 14.
Mhm.
But that was kind of quote unquote planned before those buildings were there.
But now the buildings are there, so,
They realign it somewhere else.
okay, so, what is the status of a bridge across 14, is that?
It's in this 2040-ish Beltline improvement plan.
40-ish.
Yes.
2050 now.
What?
2050.
2050 now. It's, the PEL is program and environmental linkages or planning and environmental
yes,
linkages. And it's basically kind of a comprehensive plan scale of detail for planning the future of the Beltline and the other main transportation arteries. So they're talking about BRT and the effect of transit, the effect of radial bus lines and all kinds of things. And, that could possibly be in the future of the Beltline.
So it's a possible thing to be included in future
Yep.
changes. Are the starting and end points of this bridge specified then, or?
Well, you can see on the left, right above Spring Guest there to the left is Rolfsmeyer Road.
Yeah, okay.
And that is a Fitchburg street, and that would be the west end.
Oh.
And then and so that leads into the Madison Stewart Street neighborhood, but as I say, Rolfsmeyer and the construction yard and Brown Sales to the south of it is in Fitchburg. North of it is now Madison. And then the idea being that the connections that Southdale has really stink to the rest of
Yes.
the metro area, and that this would be a huge reliever. People are constantly going onto the Beltline and going for one or two segments and getting off again on a local road network because the Beltline blocks the direct routes that could have been there otherwise, and it's the only way. And so they were looking at a lot of relievers, bridges across or underpasses on the Beltline, and to a lesser extent, the Verona Road and 14.
But this idea, which I think is a great idea, is it already has some standing, or is it just?
It has standing, yeah. If they get the conceptual design fleshed out, it could be in the 5-year transportation improvement plan in the future.
Okay.
And that would make it eligible for federal funding and, 80/20.
And what about, I forgot, was the connecting up Badger Road?
Okay, go scroll north a bit.
Is that, have a similar standing or a similar?
Yep, well, actually, the Badger one does not have the same standing as the other two. The other two are in there, and we're requesting East and West Badger. Just put your cursor on it so Bill can see what we're talking
Oh,
about.
you can see, I know where it is,
So there's more altitudinal challenges there than,
right. So the bridge has some greater standing. This is a potential recommendation from
yeah.
the city.
Yeah. If you look at the structure of the PEL study, they have these high priority things and this next layer of priorities and then this next layer of priorities and then a fourth layer of priorities. And so these things come in at different levels of priority.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they talk about is adding more lanes to the Beltline, which I'm vehemently opposed to because it doesn't help congestion, it just induces more traffic. We're basically asking that these cross linkages and alternative paths and so on be higher prioritized than the Beltline capacity.
Okay, so that obviously is going to give a lot of further discussion. And I appreciate your feelings about expanding the Beltline. I have to say, I don't completely understand. I'm sure that you have a thought through rationale about that, but maybe sometime we should have a discussion about that. If nothing else, so I can understand why you think that.
Mhm.
I mean, I think most people think, yeah, add more lanes. You'll move.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I did send I think I had to miss the July meeting maybe, and in advance of that, Bill, I did send my thoughts, which also oppose the capacity expansion, and included links to 4 or 5 reports that talk about kind of the negative effects on both health, climate, and just congestion mitigation from expansion, in case that's helpful. And I'm happy to resend that if you'd like.
You know, maybe I should look at my emails to find those or something, but anyway, I'd like to understand better.
After the meeting, Google the one more lane bro meme. One more lane, bro, just one more lane. Come on, just one more. Just one more lane's gonna fix it.
And the technical term is induced traffic. So, all right, is there any more on Beltline PEL study? Otherwise, we will put that to bed and it will not appear on future agenda items unless we get more solicitations for comments or they put something out that we want to talk about.
I'd like to have the list you put up there, because that's not in our packet.
It's not, no.
I'd
We
like
can
to
include that in the meeting minutes.
Okay. Again, Ross wasn't around for the packet deadline. We were scrambling to find some things to get in here that we were able to, Tim and Dina and I. All right, development of proposals for TTC review. We have one thing in the packet, which is a message that Dina sent me and Ross and Bill Horns. With a list of the kinds of things that they get. And I had aspired in this email, or perhaps early, in the one that's in my message that solicited this email, it would be good if we had start a list of the things that the Plan Commission considers, and then we can kind of look at them and say which of these things seem important to us from their potential transportation impact. And so that's what this list is. We also had correspondence from Troy Klein, who used to be on this commission, suggesting that we have a constantly maintained list of projects that are in progress at the city and that appear on our agenda, at least the ones that have transportation impact. And the top links on here, on Deanna's message, are exactly that. They're not narrowed down for those that have transportation impact, but Plan Commission does post on this webpage, we're told within 2 days after submittal, each development application that is coming to the city. So that is taken care of. I think our big concern is which of these kinds of things do we want to see? I think the when is when they're referred out to Plan Commission or Board of Public Works, we want them to come here too, so that even though we only meet once a month, so does Plan, we can take a crack at them at an early stage when the project is not cast in concrete yet. So I think that's what the main discussion will be about on this item. Does that seem like what we want to talk about, or do people have other things that we need to be considering about this process?
So, and I had suggested that the way to handle these referrals is to let Bill, move at the council meeting, and that's how we would get it.
Mm-hmm.
Or alternatively, we always have the ability to pick up any topic and ask for comment on it. We're not limited in what we can comment on and how we can send it to Plan Commission. So, I mean, I guess I still a little bit favor that over having rules that bind the council and end up giving us more stuff to look at than we really want to look at.
Other comments? Elizabeth, chime in whenever you like. Seeing none, I will respond to Bill. It has been my experience as an elected official in different roles that something that staff puts on the referral sheet as a commission or committee to weigh in on a topic gets a lot more consideration by the council members than something that some council member, typically the member from that body, the council representative of that body, is requesting to be sent to their committee. And that gets more consideration than something that a committee just offers up an opinion on. And they may not even be called on in the council meeting. So I would like that higher status that comes with, okay, it's on the referral sheet, council can't consider it until our commission has a chance to meet, or 30 days is expired and it times out, which is the other way that they can get it back. So that would be my reason for having staff have guidance as to what we'd like to see. Now, I think that we don't want to throw too broad a net and see a whole bunch of stuff like, for example, telecommunications facility permits that are not going to be interesting to us at all, but we will have some things. For example, so if something is making 5 lots or more, it has to be a plat. If it's less than 5 lots, it can be a certified survey map. So typically certified survey maps are like 1 lot into 2 or carving a lot out of a farm or something like that. And they don't have very big transportation implications. But sometimes CSMs are big, like some of the ones for Orchard Point were CSMs. And that's, you divide an outlot into 3 commercial lots or something like that. So I think that if we decide that we do not want to see CSMs all the time, but we still want to see important big ones, then there'll be some discretion there for Bill or for staff to say. Now, I would really like staff to be the ones because, as I say, it's on the referral sheet. I think it's more powerful because council depends on staff's professional opinions. So we have 2 contrary opinions. Which way do we want to go? Do we want to leave it to Bill's discretion, or do we want to give Bill or staff some guidelines, or which?
Your opinion.
I think, well, I would side, I think, with Steve on this, in that if it shows that it's being referred to if staff is referring it to a commission, that means they value, the opinion more so than if we just say, hey,
Hey, what about us?
if you've ever done a public appearance for a non-agenda item, I think you'll get the idea. So, yeah, and so who decides which committees and commissions get to see this? Whose ear do we need to bend?
I think it's department heads generally that are advising Chad where these things go.
So this would be Deanna then, primarily.
Deanna and Tim, and if it's a transportation project, Ross. If it's a utility project, Tracy. If it's a stormwater project, is it Ben?
Yes.
Ben, and so they will. Sometimes it's obvious to Tim, and sometimes Tim needs that expertise, subject matter expertise in the area. So, sometimes Chad knows and doesn't even ask the department. So and everything goes to finance if it has a dollar sign any place in the application. Right. So, I think it's a well-oiled staff machine, And what we're trying to do is we're trying to change it a little bit so that we get some things. So,
Well, yeah, and I don't want to make a bigger deal out of this than it warrants, but the problems you raise still exist. I mean, whatever set of rules we give the city staff about putting referrals into a referral form, there are going to be cases where they don't refer something, and Bill's going to stand up and say, no, you shouldn't refer it. And there are going to be cases where they do refer something we don't want to see, and then Bill's in a very difficult position that he can't say, I think I would have some concerns if there was a referral that Bill was knocking down out of his own discretion. You know what I'm saying? It just seems simpler and cleaner to have Bill make the recommendation of additional referrals. So I don't know how we make that decision.
well,
We need a motion.
you could make that a motion.
Well, I would move that we leave these referrals to added referrals to the discretion of our representative on the council.
Is there a second? Okay, sometimes people second for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I can second for discussion.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, I think you made your point. I would make the point that it puts more stress on Bill, and even if we leave it to Bill, we still want to tell Bill what it is that we're most likely to want to see, and to Ross and Tim. And so I would like to give, even if we were to go that route, I would want to give guidance to Bill.
I think there's concern both ways. I think starting small on this, since we're not getting anything now, might be a good compromise, and saying that, like, let's start getting a few of the larger items that could come here, and if we find that we're not getting things that we wish we were seeing, then we can look at expanding the scope of what we are getting sent here automatically. I think in terms of like sending stuff here, I want to make sure that we're using the best use of this commission's time, as opposed to looking at like every single item. And so maybe we pick out which of these things are the most important to start with and kind of go from there.
Steve, you're a former alder and a former mayor, but you've been on council as well. I've only been on council since April, but I have not yet seen anyone say, hey, could you also refer to this other commission? Is that something that is typically done?
It happened when I was on council, it happened all the time.
Interesting.
Usually, someone would ask for something, and if it was a development proposal, there would be hand-wringing about, will that work with the project timeline, and will the developer be inconvenienced, and that kind of thing. And so, I think that happened more when we were asking for things to go to RCC or TTC, which some alders, when I was on the council, felt were more hostile to development. And so they felt that was throwing up roadblocks to development. Now, I cannot speak at all to the current culture of what's going on there. Do you have thoughts as, I did have one question quickly. What's an RRDC? The last item on Dina's list here from Matt.
That was a question I meant to ask her today and didn't get a chance to.
All
so
right.
I am not sure.
Putting that aside, do you have some thoughts on which of these that you'd like to see?
I would defer to someone with more expertise than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will take that deference. And I'm going to propose, so I had some things highlighted. If you don't know what these things are, then we can discuss them. But starting from the top, minor comprehensive plan amendments.
But just before you do that,
Yeah.
just I think we have to vote on the motion.
Oh.
It did get seconded.
Yes, we probably have sufficiently discussed that. So the motion was to leave it up to Bill and to staff, because staff will also have their role, to send us things that Bill thinks we are, shouldn't say that well enough, that we would be interested in. So all in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, say no.
Aye.
Was that an aye or?
I think it was, yeah.
Okay,
Yes, that was an aye. Sorry, I think I might be a little delayed.
okay, yep, you were a little delayed there, thank you. And those opposed say no? No?
No.
I would prefer that that I don't have to beg for these things, you know?
Okay, so it sounds like a no.
Yeah.
All right, so that fails 3-2. So if I may, I would suggest, now the comprehensive plan has a transportation element, and when they update the comprehensive plan, we get it. So that is not in question. But minor comprehensive plan amendments, and these are typically lot changes, future land use changes on the map. That's number 6 here. That's the biggest one. The next biggest one is a comprehensive development plan, 3A, a preliminary plat, which is 3C. So a final plat and a replat are more like water over the dam. Certified survey map.
Well, what is a replat?
A replat is, actually it happens in the smart code districts all the time. They establish property lines and they want to change them. For example, the SESTA, the Progressive Care Place in Terravesa, was to be on 5 lots, and they wanted a building across a lot line, so they asked that it be replatted so that that part of Terravesa was replatted to combine 2 lots.
Okay.
And so,
I guess I had in mind, final plat development is done, 3 years later, they want to do some major work on whatever outlots there are and build them up, in which case we would want to see that.
yep, but that would not be a replat, that would be a plat
Okay.
or a CSM, if there's 4 lots or less. So, the last one is rezoning. So rezoning for greenfield development is usually ag exclusive to something else. And so some rezonings are harmless, but we should probably see those. And then under certified survey map and conditional use permit, I wrote, it depends. So that's where your judgment's gonna be in. If somebody takes something that was platted for residential and they're gonna make it a movie theater with super high traffic turnover or a shopping mall or something, you know, that's a CSM that we wanna see. So those are the 4 that out of this top list that I think I would propose that we would ask to see. Another one that's not on this list, it would be under rezoning. Planned development districts have GIPs and SIPs, general implementation plans and specific implementation plans, but they're rezonings and they would be covered under 4.
So basically we're saying at those 4 and then CSM.
That discretion.
We would defer to you if you see something.
Right.
In that case, then we would ask.
So these would be coming through Public Works for comments. Public Works is gonna ask Ross if it's a transportation component. So Ross will have the first crack and he will know what we want. But if something leaks through and it's come up to council without us on the referral sheet and at your discretion and knowledge think that it should probably come here, then you can request.
Okay.
That's my proposal. Discussions, other things that should be added, or?
So run down again by number on this.
3A, 3C, 4, and 6. And I went through the lower list and said, how does that comport to what I just said from what I know about the individual projects? And putting aside the RRDC. Again, I would have loved to have seen the Hartung Fields preliminary plat, and that was a rezone. there was a CSM and Highfield Preserve minor PDD amendment, plan development, PDD, sorry. In Madison, they call them PPDs. Minor PPD amendment would be a rezone. So that would be under 4. A conditional use permit for a quarry would be an example of the it depends. Having a quarry is a big thing for our transportation system, and that would be something that I would hope staff would say, transportation should see this because they want to see these kinds of impactful development. Because it's
That particular one is probably the South Stoner Prairie.
Yep, well, yes, South Stoner Prairie, Yahar Minerals or
Yahara Materials.
Materials. Preliminary plat PDD for Royal Capital. So Royal Capital is a housing developer, I don't know the specifics, but I know them.
I think that's the neighborhood that's gonna be on the other side of the double M underpass, right?
I believe so.
Okay, on the Phil site.
Correct.
Okay, so that would, it's PDD rezone, so it's rezoning from wherever it is to planned development district, so that would be under 4. And I highlighted final plat for the next phase of Terravesa. I wrote preliminary plat would be better, which we've already got up here in 3C. Other thoughts? Rules, objections?
Yeah, I like that list, and at any point in time, you know, people on this commission are free to take a peek at the list of referrals on an upcoming council's agenda packet, and, you know,
Call you up.
I can pull the item out and say, hey,
Does somebody want to move that list as our recommendation to Bill and staff?
Yeah, I can move that list.
Is there a second?
second.
Further discussion? Elizabeth, your box just lit up. What do you have?
No, I was just ready to vote.
Oh, background noise, okay. All in favor of making that recommendation to Bill and staff, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say no.
I disagree.
Okay. Let the record show that passed. That brings us to Vision Zero. And I'll kick this off by just reporting that we were not able to get on the council meeting yet, and I had proposed the second meeting of September, but Julia agreed to that, but I have not heard back from Chad yet about any kind of strong objections or procedural concerns. However, Elizabeth cannot make that date. So the question is, do we want to put off our early warning to council that we're engaging in this to October, or pick different representatives to go to the council meeting, or some other thing that I haven't thought of?
I watched it a while back, so I was not at the last meeting, so I watched the part where you guys discussed all this. So what were you presenting to council again?
I was envisioning about a 5-minute presentation under under Bill's report from the Transportation and Transit Commission, that we would say that our commission has considered what we could do as a policy work plan for the coming year, and we landed on Vision Zero, and this is what Vision Zero is. And we propose to work on this and provide some education to council at a future committee of the whole, maybe have an expert speaker or, I don't know, a video, something, but basically bring them up to speed because they will be deeply involved in this commitment, which is not a small thing. And they can say, that's crazy, and have a resolution to make us stop, but at least they will be forewarned that this is not something that they're going to be blindsided with down the road.
I had a question for Elizabeth. My recollection from the last meeting, Elizabeth, was that you had some familiarity with this, and that was one of the reasons I think we thought you'd be a good person to represent us.
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar, and I'm happy to do that. I'm also happy to help put together a presentation and have somebody else share it if we want to move it forward for September 29th. So don't feel bad kind of going without me.
I would not try, somebody else was talking at the same time you were, I don't know how.
That's the airport.
Yeah.
Airport.
Thank you.
It's in the airport.
Oh,
Thank you for keeping mute on while you're not talking. Go ahead, Bill.
well, I just want to say, in light of that Elizabeth's familiarity with it and interest, I would say postpone that presentation until she can be there.
What is your availability, Elizabeth?
I could do the October 10th one. I'm going to be traveling to a meeting up north, and I'm not sure what time I'll get there on the next meeting. No, for sure. But I'm available the following one.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's, 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks.
Okay, and again, this is gonna be a multi-year process if we go down the road, so another 2 weeks will not make any difference. All right, so I'll accept consensus on that we'll just postpone until the council meeting on the 10th when I'm also available, and I'll inform Julia and Chad. The other thing that I brought was the start of our learning, and there is a national network called the Vision Zero Network. I don't know exactly who's in it, but it's certainly something that USDOT supports, and they include cities that are involved with Vision Zero, like Milwaukee and Madison, and advocacy organizations like America Walks and the Bike Federation and American Transit Association and so on, who are eager for no one else to be killed or seriously injured on our roads. And they point out that that there are about 100 people a day that get killed or seriously injured in traffic violence. So this is an 8-page summary of the core elements that would be included in Vision Zero in a community. And I brought it to you for your education and mine. And previously I was aware of the steps of Vision Zero resolution, Vision Zero implementation plan, implementation. Before there's a Vision Zero resolution, there will also need to be education and advocacy, because this isn't the normal way of doing business in American cities. It's a new thing. And in reading this, I also learned that, as it is for me, equity is very important in Vision Zero, because a lot of times neighborhoods like our Healthy Neighborhood Initiative areas are the ones that get isolated, get torn down for transportation facilities, get cut out of the improvements that are made, and so that's important. Another key step that I picked out in my reading was the creation of a high injury network map. And because our MPO, which provides us our federal road money, also is engaged in Vision Zero, they have done this. So that is a really cool thing. Madison's is online, but I could not find one for the greater MPO district that includes Fitchburg. But I do believe it exists. So what all did you get out of this, if you had an opportunity to look at it? And what shall we discuss here? Bill?
I did not read it, I scanned through it, and something that just struck my eye, and I don't know if I'm being facetious or funny or something, but if you look on page 7 of the document, it has a little chart on there, and it shows that 5% of Denver commutes were by foot. But 38% of the Denver fatalities were from that segment. If this is all I knew, I'd say that the way to save people is to get them in cars, not get them going on foot. Because I know a lot of what this talks about is more pedestrian service. And I just say that as something that just jumped out at me.
Sure.
And I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
It's typically cars going through crosswalks, that includes squishy people.
Right, I mean, I understand what happens, but if the advocacy here is to get more people walking, and that is a higher risk thing than traveling by car,
Well, you just hit the conventional thinking nail on the head. You might have recall a Republican suggestion, maybe 10 years ago, when cities in Wisconsin were asking for more transit funding. They said, why don't we just buy everybody a cheap car? And of course, that runs into problems with cheap cars break down and then you're screwed again. There's not places to park all those cars. There's not enough room on the roads for all those cars. All those cars are polluting the climate. All those cars are more cars to hit the remaining pedestrians. And so moving cars faster is the conventional wisdom. When we were talking about the Stoner Prairie Neighborhood Plan, and a question came up to Dean Gurrell, who was the Verona Area Schools District Superintendent at the time. How will the kids in the Quarry Vista neighborhood at the corner of Lacey and Fitch-Verona get to their schools? And he said, we'll bus them. I said, well, but it's only a mile away. I said, it's too dangerous. And that kind of thinking is making kids sick and causing nightmares at school drop-off and pickup time. And so this is a real break from that kind of conventional thinking where you say, we're going to build roads that it's hard for people to get hurt, even if drivers make mistakes. And that's the safe system approach. So it could be that we could continue to discuss this, or if you feel it would be more productive, we could read it, follow the links, do some of our own research, and talk about it some more next time. What's the pleasure of the body?
I think that'd be good to, read through this. I also not read the full document fully before this, but what would be so we present to the council, what is the next actionable item? I know that's up for us to decide, but what is
I think that the main thing that we
process.
need to do is to educate ourselves as to what the moving parts are of a Vision Zero implementation plan. Pick those that seem to be applicable to Fitchburg. Whether it's a big component is slowing streets, and there is a concept that neighborhood streets that are only a block or two long should not be posted at 25, they should be posted at 20. because people can only go a block before they're gonna hit the stop sign and go onto the collector. The delay in going one block at 20 instead of 25, and it dramatically reduces the chance that if you hit a kid, they're gonna die. And so that's one thing that we could be doing in new neighborhoods in Fitchburg. Now, some of that is already baked into our smart code, but our conventional single-family neighborhoods like Fahey Fields or Corey Vista could also benefit from that. So what are the parts of this? There are webinars that you can undertake to learn about. There are people from Madison who we could perhaps convince to come talk to us about what were their steps. Those are the kinds of things that I see as, I think that educating ourselves first. I know something about this, but not a lot about it. I've been on their mailing list for a while, but I haven't read everything. I've been reading headlines, you know. So I know what the themes are, but I don't know what the details are. You know, there are a number of important organizations like the National Safety Council, Federal Highway Safety Administration, that are involved in this, and it's showing up in things that are coming from the Biden administration through US DOT. And as I say, our MPO is doing it. Our state DOT is nominally a Vision Zero subscriber, but they have not walked the walk. There are precious little safe systems thinking going on. Suggestions for next steps?
Vision Zero is pretty all-encompassing, sort of an idea. I know Madison and Milwaukee have both passed Vision Zero measures. Do we have any contacts at either city? Some we could maybe have a guest speaker to kind of get us up and moving?
I am thinking of Jerry Sherpa. Jerry is a traffic engineer who, if you follow him in Madison, he trundles around all of Madison on a bike with his tool bag, opening up. He works on traffic signal timing, but he is very deeply involved in Vision Zero, and he just spoke at the the Governor's Traffic Safety Conference, which is something that just happened, which I did not attend, but he spoke at that. So he would be a terrific one from Madison Traffic Engineering.
And it would be great to hear from such a person. Look forward to that. But I mean, isn't the next step to see how the council responds to the presentation that Elizabeth gives?
We weren't going to ask them for permission. We were going to give them the opportunity.
So her presentation is, this is what we're doing, just
Yeah.
FYI.
Yeah. Is that what you understood, Elizabeth?
Yes, that was my understanding, and it was to kind of set the stage for when we come back and ask them for something later. But for now, it would be an update.
So, and I don't have any problem with that, but the council may react negatively,
They may.
and they may say, don't do that.
They may.
So
Then we'll know. But I'm hoping that cooler heads prevail and that they wait for us to provide them a policy recommendation. They will have the final word. If a majority of the council thinks it's a terrible idea and that we should just get, for example, everybody cars, then we'll know and we can undertake something else. All-encompassing is definitely operative here. For example, this encompasses complete streets, which is another big thing. Well, seeing none, you want me to shoot for a presentation at our next meeting?
That'd be great.
Okay, that will be before we see the council, I think. Or no, 2 days after? 2 days after we see the council. Okay. But we can cancel. If they tell us to.
Get your hand slapped, we got 2 days. So.
All right, I will see what I can do about that. I will ask Jerry if he or someone he recommends could come to our little body and give us a kind of an orientation 101. I think we're up to staff update.
I believe we are. My main update kind of goes back to something I've already talked about, the Beltline PEL study, indirect and cumulative impacts workshop. I attended that a few weeks ago at the WISDOT facility on the north side of Madison. I forget where exactly, what street it's actually on.
East of the airport?
Yes,
I
exactly.
know what you're talking about, I forget the street.
But basically at that workshop, I provided the comments that we've already discussed, and everyone else who was invited to the kind of technical committee portion of the Beltline study also provided comments. I think everyone else's comments combined, they had less than Fitchburg provided.
My goodness.
So, yeah, there weren't that many people in attendance.
Okay.
So,
Maybe we'll have an inordinate influence.
Well, yeah, do we know how, just like, for the entire comment period?
I don't know
A lot of
that.
feedback?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know that. This workshop was more focused on the indirect impacts that these projects would potentially have on the environment, on commerce, on the people who live nearby.
Development.
Development. And then the cumulative impacts, which, when you take these things added together on this region. So they kind of had two categories of workshop for comments there. So that's my main update.
Oh, I want to just rewind for a second on Vision Zero. The same place I got this 8-page thing, which is these elements of Vision Zero, there's a 2-page elements of Vision Zero summary. So I will get that to Elizabeth as a possible thing to include in the council packet. Let's see, I guess you do not have the links for this, so I will send them to Ross to distribute to the committee, so you have that.
So you'll send this with the links?
I will
And the 2
I will
pages?
send the links to this document and the 2-page summary.
Okay.
2-page summary might be the first 2 pages of this, but if I find that to be the case, then I will not send you the links for both, and I'll just say that.
Is that something else that ought to go in the meeting minutes?
Which? The summary?
Anything that's gonna be emailed as a follow-up to the meeting maybe belongs in the minutes.
Okay. Sure.
Or, it's attached somewhere so that people can see,
What we talked about.
yeah,
Or what staff distributed to commission members.
right.
Sounds good to me. I'll get that to you. Any report from the council, Bill?
Council passed an amendment to the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood, pushing the eastern boundary up so that it's like right up against the solar farm there. It had been, I'm not sure how far over, half a field or something.
That was because they determined that sliver could be gravity sewered, as I recall.
Yes, it was actually, I don't know whether I found it humorous or just sad, but I mean, the metric they were using was resolution 30-7, which says future development areas should be along the rail line, not consume farmland. And then one of the things in the list was, it's gotta be sewered by gravity, so.
They thought that meant or instead of and.
I'm not sure. Another bit about South Stoner Prairie neighborhood is that the steering committee had been, it's gonna be 9 people, and 4 of those 9 had been slated to be the developers. So there's Yahara Materials and Fitchburg Minerals, does that sound right?
Yes.
2 from each, and council said, hey, that seems like an awful lot of developers on there, how about we don't do that? So now they've each got 1 rep, and then taking their place is a rep from Edgewood College and another rep from the North Stoner Prairie neighborhood.
It seems like a good thing. I did express my concern to someone, can't remember who, that the neighborhood plan was being funded by the developers. And I thought that was completely inappropriate because, and that is probably why they had 2 representatives each in the original scheme. But I don't think developers should be funding neighborhood plans.
That does seem odd. Has it ever happened before? Is that a?
Yep. And I didn't like it then either.
Funding what? I mean,
Funding the consultant to do the neighborhood plan.
oh,
Which, I guess, I'm less concerned about them funding it than I am about them being on the steering committee.
Yeah.
and can just, I'm sorry for missing it. You were talking about a South Stoner Prairie neighborhood plan. And the changes to the boundary of that is what you were just describing?
Yes, there was, so the original South Stoner Prairie neighborhood, it's kind of like 2 squares overlapping and
So
offset.
going down.
Yeah,
I thought the boundary was Lacey Road and.
it's Lacey Road on the north, and then it kind of goes over to Tonto, or Fitzroy Road near Tonto Trail, right?
And I think we're talking about this area right here, Bill?
The expansion was on the east side toward Seminole Highway.
Yeah, so you move this boundary some distance this way.
No, you're way too far west.
Yeah. So see
You
where
need
the
to go
solar farm
over
is
to
there?
Seminole.
So they moved maybe this, one of these boundaries further this way.
Correct.
Where's Lacey Road? That's
top
Lacey.
right line.
So out under the center of your pen, there's kind of a vertical line going down. That's approximately where the boundary was, and they moved it to the east toward the next line, yeah.
Okay.
But there's, and this, oh. When did this get included?
That's that was my urban service area amendment to accommodate Edgewood College
That's the
athletic
Edgewood.
No.
fields, because they'll have bathrooms.
Okay, so now,
Sorry you can't see this, Elizabeth. We're standing by the map on the wall of the room.
So the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood is west of Edgewood?
Correct.
Okay.
Except that they might nominally call this part of the neighborhood when they do the planning.
Sure.
but
Another use won't change.
another line, and I'm not sure what it, I mean, we drew a long-term growth boundary, which is different from the urban service area boundary.
Right.
That must have some,
Yeah.
and that's in the comprehensive
That
plan.
was this. And then this got added to the urban service area so they could have urban services, but again, they're developing athletic fields and a shop and storage and stuff.
Okay.
This was the area that I felt did not comport with along the rail line to the south. And I was arguing back in 2010 that the Stoner Prairie should not be developed. Never. And a contrary argument by Tom Clodder was that we should balance in the east and west, which is not anybody's criteria for proper land use, but nevertheless, all of this
It
area.
maximizes the infrastructure expense.
Yeah, and the fact of this area drains to the south, and therefore it's hard to sewer.
But why I'm so puzzled is that the new neighborhood boundary now extends into outside of the long-term growth boundary.
Correct.
So are we
Well,
going to do neighborhood
it's
planning?
part of
and
the
then-
FUDA, which I presume means that it will be incorporated in the, that the urban service boundary will move to include that.
So what you're seeing is that the long-term growth boundary has been either moved or ignored, depending on your viewpoint.
I'm pretty sure this is, it's in the comprehensive plan, so,
Right, the comprehensive plan can get amended twice a year.
yeah.
And when they take 40 acres and move it, they call it a minor amendment.
So was this an amendment to the comprehensive plan, moving this line?
Can't say.
I'm not sure, so I think you can go to the Fitchburg website, you can get comprehensive plan from the original one from 2009, and I think every revision up through the present. So you could like do a binary
see
search
when
through
they
there to
did.
see when that was added as a future urban development area. But I suspect it goes back pretty far.
So again, I'm sorry to have to ask again, the neighborhood line now is over to here,
Correct.
over there? And what is the interest in that? Was it, is there gonna be a
Quarry.
that's for the quarry, not for housing, not for a neighborhood?
Well, when you talk to quarry people, they say, this is what we're going to restore it to later. So they would take down that hill and basically make the Stoner Prairie bigger. I think that is off of our agenda, so we should not dwell on it too much longer, even though it
There will be
causes some of our stomachs
there will be
to,
major transportation implications when that neighborhood goes in.
and we will be discussing it during the neighborhood planning process in this body.
And as you're aware, Lacey Road is currently under construction between Seminole and Fitrona,
No?
partly, with an eye toward the future with this neighborhood. And then next, when do we think Fitrona Road is getting redone? That's 26?
2025.
25. Okay, so moving on. There was also, I mentioned earlier, the Hartung Fields agenda, the specific implementation plan came before council, and that got postponed to the November meeting. But there is that item in there, that comment in there about the bike lane between Sain Road and Lacey Road, and the response from the developer was, we're not gonna do that until Outlot 5 is developed, and we don't know when that's gonna happen. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the bike path sidewalk issue near the USONA Institute along Woods Hollow Road.
Get that right here.
So that's being re-referred back to Public Works because phase 1 is bike path from basically the Woods Hollow, so you can see phase 1 there. Everybody except Elizabeth can see phase 1. It's from the Woods Hollow Child Care Center down to the driveway, the existing driveway, and that is a bike path that now exists. They put that in, and then it was initially going to be a sidewalk from the other side of that driveway all the way over to along Gunflint Trail over to Glacier Valley Road, and now they're saying that we want to have a bike path to the roundabout and then sidewalk from there on. And all of that discussion about why we need sidewalk and bike path on that side of the road predates anything that I was ever involved in.
Right.
We've got history on that.
I've got it printed out here because I was concerned that we are allowing developers to build 8-foot bike paths, which are substandard and do not are not wide enough for safe two-way bike traffic. So I alerted Tim and Ross to this. They said, well, that's been all approved, and I think it's another example. And it is probably an example of one of these smaller projects that has transportation implications that should be coming to us. If there is a bike path on, if there's a question as to, for example, when Lacey Road was planned, the one that's being reconstructed now, it was planned without a sidewalk on one side, on the south side. Now they're proposing a subdivision there. They're going to have to put in that sidewalk. Too bad for that developer. They didn't get the benefit of the federal funds or whatever else in city funding to get that sidewalk in. But this is a good example of something we should have seen, but it's probably too late to change. Unless, if they're going to phase two, if it's going to be a bike path, it should be 10 feet wide asphalt path. So.
Yeah, I've been on the phase one path, but I didn't pay enough attention to see how wide it is.
Mm-hmm. Found out that Dorn has a measuring wheel, so I'm going to buy one and keep it in my car.
The only other item I had for council update was that on Tuesday, we had a little presentation from Phil Gruppe about B-Cycle expansion. We've got a $404,000 TAP grant to cover up to 80% of that expansion project, which leaves roughly $80,000 for a local match. And Phil is hoping to get about half of that from corporate sponsorship. You know more about this, but it's my understanding that the existing docks were largely paid for by the businesses that are nearby.
That will affect placement, because typically what happens is that your hotel says, I'd like one of these by my place, and they front the $25,000 for 9 bikes or 9 docks and 5 bikes. What happens then is that neighborhoods that don't have a lot of resources get left behind in the system. And so the TAP grant was meant to put stations in using equity considerations where people really needed bicycle transportation because the households didn't have very many cars and things like that, and there were no corporate sponsors. So if it affects the locations negatively, then that will be a bad thing. And that's why we got the TAP grant, why the city was putting in the matching money. So I hope that.
So I jotted down a non-exhaustive list of the locations that Phil was talking about. So his Civics campus here,
Yep.
The Dolly Hub, McGaw Park, the Northfish Hatchery Road Hub, Southdale, Anton Drive, Williamsburg Way, Mackenzie Center, and the Allied Boys and Girls Club. So those are largely places.
So the last 5 of those were the equity placements. And the city should definitely be paying some money because they're thinking of putting one by the senior center and one by the library, or maybe on this side of the library. So
Do we have any usage numbers for the existing ones?
they're off the charts.
Yeah.
We don't know what the numbers are though.
Well,
I mean, unknown on the charts numbers.
no, Phil did give an update on that.
Okay.
I think he said that since they've been installed, there have been between 3,000 and 4,000 bike trips.
Cool.
And I don't know whether you view that as a lot or a few, given that they've been around. What it was.
E-cycle management was very impressed by the
Okay.
Fitchburg ridership.
Okay.
But there's really not a lot of places you can go because you need to be able to drop the bike off
Right.
or make sure you get back to that dock within an hour and a half, or you gotta pay a little more. So the more docking stations we have, the more rides, the more it's going to become
The
traffic
more
for people.
complete the network is, yeah. When Bike Fitchburg met at Addisys, which is at the corner of McKee and Fish Hatchery Roads, we had a short presentation by Jason Adamany, who co-owns the business with his brother. And he says that he commutes every day on B-cycle, walks over to the McKee Park station and rides the bike up to the station right in front of his business and rides one home every day. And in that way, his teenager gets a car. So there's 2 rides a day coming in.
There you go.
And he often goes out during the day and because he's got a B-cycle station right in front of his business. So that's pretty cool.
That's it for me.
That's it? Okay, we have no plan, commission, or Board of Public Works representative today. So if you could indicate, or if Dina, you could indicate no report for those. And then for future agenda items, I have the RFP on transit and the Vision Zero again. So are there any other things that you expect to be coming up, Ross?
No.
Okay. Plus, of course, any council referrals that we can get. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Our next meeting is October 12th. I would entertain, are there any other announcements?
So we get 10 meetings a year. Are we skipping December? We've already skipped June. Or
As you
holding out
know,
hope?
if we need 2 more meetings, let's see, we have 3 more months.
Yes.
If we need 3 more meetings, I will ask the mayor if there's contingency to fund them, otherwise we'll run out of money. But,
Does that go by calendar year?
Calendar year, 10 meetings, yeah.
yeah, it goes by the fiscal year of the city, which is a
Which is
calendar,
not, it is the calendar year.
not the state, not the feds. And I have argued that we should be funded for 12 meetings a year to the mayor, but budget time is coming, we'll see how that works out. I hope that you will advocate for us, Bill.
I move adjournment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 There are no one left to oppose, so thank you very much. And we will see you next month if